Internet sensation and 20-year-old singer David is now under intense scrutiny after human remains were found in the front trunk of a Tesla registered to him. The victim has been identified as Celeste Rivas Hernandez, and she has been linked to David. Authorities have executed search warrants at a sprawling Hollywood Hills property tied to David, seizing electronics and other items as part of the investigation. No charges have been filed so far as law enforcement continues to probe any connections between the singer, the vehicle, and the victim. Meanwhile, David's manager, who has been the focus of internet accusations, is speaking out, and we have all the latest. But first, Laken Snelling was a 21-year-old cheerleader at the University of Kentucky and is now the focus of a heartbreaking case. On August 27, 2025, roommates discovered her newborn baby's body inside her closet, wrapped in a towel, sealed in a black trash bag. Laken faces 3 felony charges: abuse of a corpse, tampering with physical evidence, and concealing the birth of an infant. She's been released on a $100,000 bond and is under house arrest at her parents' home in Tennessee as authorities await autopsy results. The cause and manner of the newborn's death remains inconclusive, and whether the infant was alive at birth is still under investigation. But tonight, we are learning a lot more about the evidence in the case as the search warrant affidavit has been unsealed, and we have all the new details. I'm Vinny Politan. Thank you so much for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments. This story is really puzzling to me. The story of Laken Snelling and the baby, the newborn, that was found in the closet in her home. And really the first question I think all of us have, and I think it's the most important question in this case, is why? What was going on? What drove her to do this? Was this a hidden pregnancy? Was she afraid of what would happen, the reaction of her parents? Why? Why would you go through this knowing that there is no way that you can just walk away from a dead infant in your closet? Like, it doesn't make sense to me, because this is not a 14-year-old girl that we're talking about. This is a bright college student. She's not even a freshman. She's an upperclassman. What is the thinking? What is going on? What's happening in her relationship with the father of the child? Did people know? Did they not know? And why would she hide this child? That's what's going to determine what happens to Laken Snelling. Because I don't think you're getting around the fact that this child was born alive. This is not a victimless crime. You know, sometimes in the cases where we cover a mother accused of the murder of their child, there isn't anyone there for that child in the courtroom. Because the mother's the one on trial, right? And many times the grandparents of that child, you know, they're heartbroken, but they also don't want to see their child locked away. So there's this sort of imbalance sometimes. And sometimes it's just like, oh, it was just, you know, an infant. It was just a baby. No, this is a victim. There's an absolute victim, even though there may not be someone in that courtroom for that victim. So how do we understand and try to figure out what was going on in this young woman's life that would lead to these circumstances? A lot of times the answers are right here. Cell phone evidence. Cell phone evidence. Our lives are on our cell phones, especially with younger people. Everything is there. And I think there's a lot in this case that was found on Laken Snelling's cell phone. Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas is here with more on this investigation. So let's start with her story, right? What's her story to police?
Vinny, that's the kicker, the way you just phrased it, to police. These are her words according to this affidavit. And the interesting thing about it, Vinny, she doesn't necessarily deny any of this happening. Now, according to the affidavit, it says in part, Ms. Snelling stated that around 4 a.m., she gave birth to a baby which fell onto the floor of her bedroom. Ms. Snelling stated that she didn't think the baby was breathing or was alive. Ms. Snelling advised that she was awake for around 30 minutes after giving birth before falling on top of the baby. Ms. Snelling said that when she woke up from passing out, she quickly got up and observed the baby turning blue and purple. Lakin said that she believed the baby to be dead and wrapped the baby up like a burrito, that's a quote from the affidavit, and laid next to it on the floor because it gave her a little comfort in the moment. Ms. Snelling said she was woken up by her alarm at 7:30 a.m. for class. Ms. Snelling said that she noticed that she was still bloody and needed to get a shower. Ms. Snelling said that she went to the kitchen to get a black trash bag. Ms. Snelling said she placed the baby, which was still wrapped up inside of the towel, inside of the black trash bag and placed the black trash bag in the closet. Ms. Snelling said after taking the shower, she came back into her room and started to clean up the rest of the blood. Ms. Snelling said she placed the placenta inside of a Ziploc bag and placed it inside of the black trash bag. Ms. Snelling stated that she then put the black trash bag back into the closet and shut the door. So, Vinny, nowhere in there, these are her words, this is what she's telling police. Nowhere in there did she try to hide that she did it, try to deny that she did it. She's telling them exactly what happened.
But she is saying that she didn't believe the baby was alive.
That is what she's saying, yeah.
So that's part of the opening of perhaps where this case goes. Okay, so what happens now? What is she doing that next morning, right? She gives birth, she's passes out, then she's lying next to the baby that she believes is dead, and then what happens?
So this is where it gets a little interesting because her actions the next morning don't necessarily seem like the actions of someone who gave birth alone in a bedroom as a college student. So the affidavit says, quote, Ms. Snelling stated that she left her residence after this and went to school. Lakin stated that she did not go into class, but sat in her vehicle in the parking lot. Ms. Snelling stated that she wasn't feeling well, so she ordered McDonald's through the McDonald's app. Ms. Snelling said that after getting McDonald's, she went to the University of Kentucky Student Clinic, where she also did not go inside. After this, Ms. Snelling stated that she returned to the home where she was detained and transported to headquarters for questioning. So, Vinny, she goes to this, what I imagine to be somewhat of a traumatic experience, but just decides to order McDonald's and go back home, and then she gets detained and taken down to headquarters.
All right, and did that questioning reveal anything?
It revealed that this baby might actually have been alive through her own words yet again. The affidavit says in part, it should be noted that when speaking to medical staff at the University of Kentucky Labor and Delivery, she stated that the baby had a little bit of fetal movement but passed out shortly after. Ms. Snelling stated that during her questioning by myself and Detective Martinez, that the only time she passed out was around 30 minutes after giving birth, which leads me to believe that the baby could have been moving. Ms. Snelling also told medical staff that the baby made a, quote, whimper, and that she, quote, guessed the baby was alive. A search warrant of Ms. Snelling's phone resulted in locating several searches, including different things pertaining to pregnancy and different hashtags for different weeks of being pregnant on social media. So on one hand, she thinks it's dead, then she gets down to headquarters, and it's as if she might have thought it was alive.
Right, the baby's moving, making noise, and also, this isn't a case, because sometimes there have been cases like this where someone doesn't know they're pregnant. There's evidence from her phone that she knew that she was pregnant. We just don't know if she was telling other people.
That's exactly right.
All right, Cody's going to stick around. Let's bring in our think tank. Joining us tonight, former federal prosecutor, president of the West Coast Trial Lawyers, Nima Rahmani, trial attorney, fellow of the American College of Trial Lawyers, and Bremner, and criminal defense attorney Eklund Mercy. Great to see everyone tonight. Nima, you're a prosecutor here. Looking at this case, what strikes you about the inconsistent statements about whether or not that child was or was not alive, or whether she thought the child was or was not alive?
Well, Vinny, that's the key question here, right? You know, the defense is going to argue that this baby was stillborn and was not alive when delivered. Obviously, that reduces the exposure because then you're talking about, you know, not reporting the birth of a baby or a stillborn baby or abuse of a corpse or those types of offenses, which are a lot less serious than homicide or even manslaughter. So that's going to be the key question in the case. And like you said, Snelling has made some pretty damning admissions about the baby's movement, about the whimper, and then her passing out and waking up half an hour, and then it was dead. So the fact that the child was delivered alive by the mother's own admissions, that's going to be everything in the case. And like you said, you can't deny that she knew she was pregnant because of all the social media posts, holding her belly. I mean, we've all seen that on Instagram and other sites.
And Bremner, what are your thoughts about why? How important is that question as to why she did what she's accused of doing here with this baby? You know, what's going on in her life, the motivation behind it?
I mean, Vinny, that's the absolute key question here. I mean, she's going to say that a baby would ruin her life, ruin her relationship. You know, she's of that age. She's not in high school, but she's pretty new into college. And she definitely didn't want to have the baby. And she may be saying that the baby was alive and died and there's nothing she could do about it. I mean, she's trying to excuse herself, but she knows, you know, she's got the guilty consciousness there of putting that baby in the closet and wrapping the baby up like a burrito. It's just horrific. But the why is huge. It's just huge. And I can imagine it's one of the things I just mentioned.
Eklund, as I look at this defendant in court, it's either extremely evil behavior in this case, in taking the life of this newborn, or there's something terribly wrong with her. How do we figure that out?
She's a child, and so essentially she's a baby. They did baby making things, and she brought a baby into this world. Unfortunately, in Kentucky, there's near total abortion. There's a near total abortion ban. So she wouldn't have been able to get an abortion even if she wanted to. So she's a child and she's in college and she has parents and she is scared. The amount of clients I have and how their cases will compound because of fear and what they'll do to not have their parents know, the amount of disassociation children will do to make sure that their parents won't know, you'd be surprised. So you have, and then we can add sex, there is no sex education now. She's a child. So she's a child and she was put in a grown-up situation and she's scared. You'd be surprised what fear can do. How many cases do you know, Vinny, that can go from aggravated assault, that went from aggravated assault to murder because of fear? So fear will make you and will push you to do things, you wouldn't necessarily want to do.
Yeah, and I understand, the term child, right? It can be interpreted different ways. Traditionally, these cases and what we've seen, Nima, through the years, the women, or they're actually not women, they're like teens, they're usually much younger. And I get that. There's a different level of sophistication here. This is perhaps the oldest young woman I've seen in this scenario, right? It's usually high school, middle school, prom mom. Those are the stories that we've covered before. We've never covered one quite like this, and I'm wondering, does our system of justice look at this differently, or do we look at it the way Eklund's looking at it?
Well, it does treat them differently. I mean, here's someone who's over the age of 18. She's a college student. She's a cheerleader. She's not a middle schooler. She's not a high schooler. The way the law works in most states, you can't even have sexual activity in most states, at least until you're 16, many states until you're 18. So here's someone that was able to have sex and obviously did get pregnant, and she's going to be prosecuted as an adult. And I completely understand what Eklund is saying. That's more of a public policy argument, and whether the right to have an abortion would have changed anything in this case, I don't know. Maybe, but the fact is that she was full term. She gave birth. She knew the child was alive, and the child died, whether it was through an intentional act, whether it was through neglect. The child was in her custody when the child died, and then she covered it up. So things aren't going to look good for Snelling because she's an adult.
Let's take a look at this. This is, again, from the affidavit for the search warrant. some of the evidence here. A search warrant of Miss Snelling's phone resulted in locating several searches, including different things pertaining to pregnancy, images of her during labor, photos of her doing things ordinary pregnant women would not be doing, and a concealed or hidden pregnancy. Also, during the search of the phone, the photos that were taken while she was in labor were deleted in an attempt to hide the birth. Obviously, that's according to investigators in this case. Ann Bremner, what are your thoughts here about erasing the photos that she took of herself while she's in labor?
Well, it's pretty damning. On the other hand, she may just not want to see those things. I mean, obviously, this has been really traumatic for her, and we don't know. We really don't know if the child really died in her presence. We don't know anything about that right now. The autopsy is going to tell us a lot more. But, this is somebody that I think was scared. And she had her whole life ahead of her, and she felt like this was something that was going to impede her future. Now it's far worse. I mean, she's got a criminal prosecution to impede her future. But I think she, taking those kinds of pictures, I don't know what was inconsistent with being pregnant. I don't know if they elaborate on that at all in terms of the pictures. But like you said, the phone's a treasure trove, especially for individuals in this age group.
Eklund, a concealed or hidden pregnancy is kind of along the lines of what you were saying, right? She doesn't want other people to know about this. I just want to, when we cover stories like this, to me, if these kids, and even college kids, if they just knew, and I looked at her walking into court with her parents, I'll guarantee you, Eklund, those parents would have loved that grandchild more than they loved her. That's just the way we grandparents are. That's just the way we are. They would have embraced that child. They would have loved that child. And I just wish that every young woman or girl who got in that situation that has a family like she does would understand that.
I am going to have to disagree. The issue is that we do not live in a vacuum. And as the government is currently shut down, when you're looking at these kids have been through a different existence than we have ever. Number one, the reason why these types of cases are happening now more with older people is because in Kentucky, the total abortion ban.
You don't think mom and dad would have loved that child? The grandparents?
Let me finish. The issue is that you have these children who are living in a world where there is mass shootings all the time. They go through high school with mass shootings. They go through all of this. Now you're having all of the things that are happening every day on the news. Any person with a reasonable level of sentience would be wary about bringing a child into this existence. So for a person to be an age, if she was only 18 4 years ago, she wouldn't be in this position. And for her to be in that position now, and then for everybody to call her cruel, it's going to have to, you know what I mean? You can't take away that type of right, and you don't provide education. You don't do sex ed. You don't provide any contraceptive, like you don't provide healthcare. I make it make sense to me. Even if she wanted to take care of the fetus, where, how, what Planned Parenthood?
Grandma and grandpa would have stepped in for sure. We that's what we do. I'm telling you. No, but they would step in. They would love that child. They would love that child. They would support they're supporting their daughter who's dragged into court at this point. I just wish they understood that. And I understand it may not compute, but I'm coming to it from the perspective of the grandpa. You're going to love that child. All right. Everyone stay where you are. Eklund Mercy, Ann Bremner, Nima. Eklund, we'll have more time on the other side. We don't cut mics, but we got to get to the commercial. Up next, what did the roommates have to say? Plus, coming up next hour.
Tonight on Vinnie Politan Investigates, Judgment Day for Diddy is tomorrow as Sean Combs learns his sentence. Will it be months or years? What is justice in this case? Tonight, we investigate.
Join Court TV's Vinny Politan with the latest and breaking true crime stories.
Now, let's look at the other side of all of that.
Vinny Politan Investigates. Tonight, 9/8 Central, only on Court TV.
4 dead students.
None of it seemed to make any sense.
He was evil.
What devastation.
All I could do was scream.
Victim to Verdict with Ted Rollins. New episode Saturday night, 8 Eastern and Pacific.
Only on Court TV.
Good morning, ma'am. You were Lincoln Snell? Yes. Okay. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I work Barry Wade. This is the grand jury. The county attorney's office. It's going to get this on. I'll do the stuff right now.
Okay. Ms. Nellie, you just heard your attorney state that it's your desire to waive this matter to the Fayette County grand jury. You understood you got a right to have a preliminary hearing this morning, but it is your desire to waive this matter at this time.
Yes.
Okay. I know that you have posted in electronic monitoring, residing with parents, all of that's still in place, correct? Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
It was a brief appearance in court, but that was Lakin Snelling being brought in. She's out on bond. She's not locked up. And the investigation is continuing. Still waiting for those autopsy results. And there you see her walking out. And she's got, the support of the folks in her family. Let's bring back in Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas with more on this. Let's talk about the roommates, right? And the house. They're not living in a dorm, right? They're living in a house.
Off-campus housing, University of Kentucky. And naturally, as college roommates are, I'd imagine you're pretty close. They have the Snapchat group message, the group text going on, checking in with each other. This particular night, the roommates had suspicions because they heard a bunch of loud noises, given, she's giving birth in the room next to them. So the affidavit says in part, in the 4 a.m. hour of August 27th, one of the roommates sent a message in the group chat stating she heard loud noises that sounded like something had fallen. Another roommate stated she heard the noises too, and that whatever caused them was so forceful, it knocked a picture off her wall. One roommate stated the noises lasted for approximately an hour. At 8:48 a.m., Miss Snelling sent a text to the group chat stating that those noises were caused by her passing out. She told the group she had not been feeling well and had not eaten and had fainted as a result. Ms. Snelling then informed the group chat she was going to be seen by a doctor. Now, the affidavit goes on to say, curious as to Ms. Snelling's story, the roommates entered Ms. Snelling's room in an attempt to locate a source of the loud noises. In the room, they found a blood-soaked towel on the floor and a plastic bag containing evidence of childbirth. They looked in Miss Snelling's closet and located the deceased newborn baby placed in bags. The newborn appeared to be a full-term baby. Ms. Hamilton, that's one of the roommates, Erin Hamilton, Ms. Hamilton told me that all the occupants of the residence had suspicions that Ms. Snelling was pregnant, but never confirmed it with her.
Wow.
So, that's not one of those things you really want to ask. Maybe it's none of their business to ask, what do you got going on?
But, she's pregnant. She's carrying a child. These are her roommates, her friends, and I guess they didn't know. So she was hiding it from at least her roommates.
At least those two roommates.
Yeah, they suspected it, but she never said, oh, I'm pregnant, I'm going to have a child.
Can you imagine walking in there and that's the discovery you make after, what are these loud noises? Maybe it was whatever, and then you find a dead fetus in a bag in your roommate's closet.
It's unreal. But they said the noises lasted for like an hour.
Right.
So it was not just like a thump of someone fainting. There was something else going on, which is, I guess, why they went in there. All right, thanks so much, Cody. Let's bring back in our think tank, still with me, Nima Rahmani, Ann Bremner, Eklund Mercy. And this situation it's curious. So it seems to a certain extent this is a hidden pregnancy. How does that play into the case against her?
Well, I think it plays in a huge way in the case against her. She's trying to hide it, and that includes, having the child die, and that she doesn't want to get any help for the child. She wants to have childbirth by herself without any medical intervention, and not even telling her roommates or anybody else. I don't even know if her family knew. I bet they didn't. And so it plays against her, I think, in a huge way, because she's trying to hide the evidence of this child in every way she can, including after the child was born.
Eklund, your thoughts about the dynamic here inside this home? It's a relatively small off-campus house. It's not huge. The roommates are hearing all these noises in the middle of the night, lasting an hour. They suspect something is going on here, which is, I get why they go into the room. But she had never confided in them, never had the discussion with them. What are your thoughts about that? And is it important what the father of the child knows or didn't know?
Well, I think it's pretty important. Just by the state and University of Kentucky, they're pretty conservative. So it makes sense that she wouldn't tell her friends about a baby, especially if, she's trying to stay in college. And, being young and a girl, kind of telling your friends that you're pregnant may be a Debbie Downer. So again, she is still a child. So I think it makes sense. Another thing is, with regards to the theory, I'm thinking the issue is that we have a reduction. We have crimes of passion, right? In which you can reduce a first degree murder to voluntary manslaughter because of jealousy or anger. So, but issue is that with regards to criminology and studying it, they mostly study men. They don't study women. So if we can say, hey, we can reduce it for anger and jealousy, what about fear? What about fright? What about terror? And you know what I mean? And just based off of her trajectory, like if you do have a conservative home, this may be the worst thing that can ever happen to you.
Yeah, let Nima, from a prosecutor's perspective here, how do you make that decision if you can prove that baby was alive between murder, manslaughter, involuntary manslaughter?
It's a very difficult decision, right? Manslaughter, I don't think you have voluntary manslaughter here. That usually is sort of the fit of rage, right? That Eklund was talking about, or sometimes if it's imperfect self-defense. So you're really stuck with murder, second degree, malice murder, intentional murder, reckless disregard for a human life, or involuntary manslaughter, which is criminal or gross negligence or recklessness, as well as other crimes. But those are certainly the homicide crimes. And look, Eklund is right. Obviously, I'm a man. I don't know what it's like to be pregnant. It seems like we're just speculating that it was an unwanted pregnancy. I don't know. Maybe it was just a hidden pregnancy. Clearly, she was hiding it from her roommates, maybe others. And I do know enough about pregnancy to know it must not have been easy to give birth by yourself in your college apartment without any medical attention, without any pain management like an epidural. This must have been very hard for her. So, do you file those murder charges? Is that extreme? Obviously, as a prosecutor, you want to do what's just, not necessarily what you can prove. Maybe it does fit within the four corners of murder law and you could technically charge her, but I don't know if that's the just result for a case like this involving a young woman.
And Bremner, do you think discussions are beginning already between prosecutors and her attorney?
I do, especially because, it was the lead story in the Daily Mail today. It said she gave birth and then went to McDonald's. That's the way that they phrased it in the headline. So, it's everywhere in the publicity. So you bet they're talking now, and I think there's probably sympathy from the prosecution towards her plight and a wish to resolve it if they can.
All right, Eklund, we have about 25 seconds here. Don't take us overtime.
Yeah.
Give us your final thoughts tonight.
Midterms are coming. They should settle this case there.
There you go. There you go. All right, we've got more to get to. Think Tank staying with us. Another story we've been covering involving the singer on the left. His name is David. He's a up-and-coming star, an internet sensation. The girl on his right is Celeste Rivas Hernandez. She was found dead in the trunk of his Tesla. Now, David's manager is speaking out. We've got the latest next.
I was such an internet kid. the internet is really what I claim as my home. Like, if you ask me where I'm from, I say the internet, because I was just online every day doing my schoolwork, making songs, making a video, being a YouTuber, content creator, posting TikToks, posting on Instagram. Like, that's really my neighborhood was Instagram, and the society was the internet. You know what I'm saying? So
Raised on the internet. The internet is his home. That's David. Well, the internet's talking about him now because there was a teenage girl found dead in the trunk of his Tesla. So now he's the subject of that investigation and the subject of a lot of discussion online. And some of that discussion also involves his manager, David's manager. David's manager, Josh Marshall, is being brought up as well on the internet. Content creator Girltown NJ got some traction with this video posted on TikTok.
A family friend of Celeste Rivas Hernandez sent an email to Josh Marshall, who is David's manager and roommate. And in the email was the missing persons report of Celeste and all of her information. And it said, we know Celeste is living with you guys. She needs to return home. One day later, Celeste returned home. And then a month after that, she went back to living with David and his roommate, Josh Marshall.
Okay, so that's an accusation, right? Going right at the manager of David being somehow involved in all of this. Well, John Marshall has broken his silence. Los Angeles Magazine, incredible article written by Lauren Conlon. In a series of comments and posts, Marshall has sought to clarify his position and denying receiving any email. This video is false, the video we just showed you, and the person is misinformed. This is the only time I'll speak on this matter. For now, this has been a tough time for my family as I am a father of 3 children. I receive no emails, and I'm no one's roommate. I live full-time at home with my wife and kids. My daughter is 14, and this news is affecting so many lives. I never received any emails. I had zero knowledge of anything, and I don't live in California. Also, I work remotely 95% of the time, and my job doesn't require me to have much interaction with any of my clients or David, as there are many others that work with him on a day-to-day capacity, not me. This news is tragic for so many and for her family. I hope the proper authorities get to the bottom of it soon. Let me remind people, a lot of this is speculation and alleged. In the meantime, I am with my family, helping them emotionally get through the news of this tragedy. Please report on factual information, and that's coming from Josh Marshall. So let's bring in the author of that article and the host of the Outlier podcast and Pop Crime TV and a friend of the show, reporter Lauren Conlon. Lauren, great to see you. Give me a little bit more of the background of the manager and David, the relationship, the connections, if they're there.
Sure. Well, this is literally almost a game of telephone, Vinny, because I believe it was last Friday, I did a separate live stream with Steve Fisher, a great PI based in Los Angeles, and he has been on top of this case. So on that live stream, Steve Fisher and I discuss a potential email that he believes was sent to Josh Marshall, but it didn't necessarily say we know Celeste is living with, quote, you guys. The email, per Steve, was simply a concerned adult in Celeste's life who had a speculation that she might be with David. Perhaps if Josh knew anything, he could do something about it. And listen, we don't know if that email ever got to Josh, but Steve stands by his source and says, oh yeah, this email was sent per them and I have it in my possession. So I think that what happened was this got clipped, and then it went viral across the internet, which then caused Josh Marshall to see this one video by Girltown. And I mean, he just started commenting. And I was shocked, Vinny, because he's been silent for 2 weeks. And I'm thinking to myself, honey, lawyer up, get out of this girl's TikToks. This is so strange. But also, he didn't mention Celeste by name, so maybe, he has been advised by a lawyer not to do so. I think at this point, he wants to distance himself as much as possible from David. I did verify in Josh's DMs that it was him, so I could file this story and just, ensure that everything was accurate. But I mean, he is vehemently denying everything. He, at this point, even saying that he works remotely 95% of the time. He has very little interaction with his clients. I mean, that's rare, I think, in the music industry for a manager not to have a lot of interaction with his client. But again, I do see where Josh is coming from. He doesn't want anything to do with this at all.
No, you don't want to be anywhere near this, because someone's getting arrested at some point for what happened to Celeste here. Let me ask you one follow-up question. David himself, is he making any statements?
No, David has yet to make a statement. And, you know, at this point, I think that is a very bad move on his part for his career, let's say. And look, Vinny, you saw the statement that LAPD made the other day. The fact that they said we may only have a charge of concealment of a body on our hands. And look, I'm paraphrasing, but that to me says that, hey, maybe, just maybe, we're not dealing with a homicide here. I mean, at the beginning of this investigation, we thought perhaps she unfortunately had been dismembered, but they said nothing about abuse of a corpse or anything like that. So, I mean, you know, I think maybe it would be time for David to make some kind of statement. But, you know, I did confirm that he is using Blair Burke. She is a very high-powered celebrity attorney. Nima can probably speak on this as well. However, Blair Burke, while she has tried a few murder cases, she's really, you know, she does well with celebrities who have like minor little issues like DUIs or more fixer type of issues. So I thought that was interesting, and it's kind of painting a larger picture here, I guess, for me.
Absolutely. Lauren Conlon, great information as always. We appreciate it. Thanks so much. All right, folks, let's bring back in our think tank, Nima Romani and Bremner, Eklund Mercy. All right, Nima, what's going on here? Where does this thing end up?
Yeah, I'm surprised like Lauren is. I expected murder charges, and I know LAPD, who I respect, but I'm sitting in Los Angeles, downtown LA, a mile away from their headquarters. I live in Los Angeles. They can be pretty slow, but there's a lot of attention on this case, Vinny, and they got to have answers. A young girl was found in the trunk of David's vehicle. So if she overdosed, we need to know. Let's not forget, the ME has already released the body to the family. You know, I know we're waiting on some toxicology reports from the county, but the investigation should be pretty much done by now. So the fact that no one's been arrested for anything, right? And look, David might not be a murderer, but the body was found in his vehicle. He's spending a lot of time with a young girl who's run away more than once. He's got a lot of questions to answer, and I'm sure Blair's not going to let him answer those questions, but there's a lot of smoke here, Vinny. His tour's been canceled, his record, Interscope, they're not releasing it. Everyone's dropped him. So there's a lot of smoke, and I don't want to accuse anyone of anything, but at a minimum, it seems like he had some sort of relationship with this girl, and her body ended up in his car. So if he doesn't do it, he knows who did.
And Bremner, I think Lauren hit the nail on the head that the manager is trying desperately to distance himself from his client, right? Usually that's not a great selling point for a manager. I have very little contact with you. I don't, right? This was an up-and-coming guy. It seems to me he may be a very important potential witness in all of this if he had some level of contact with his client.
Yeah, I mean, he might be the most important witness, Vinny. And the fact is that, you know, David's moved out of this house that he was in. He was renting. That car was his. That had the dent on the side. Everyone knew which car it was, the Tesla, and he left it abandoned for it to be towed. Unbelievable that you would leave a body in the trunk of a car and let it be towed to a towing yard where inevitably they're going to be able to smell decomposition and find a body or part of a body. You know, and he's at least one song about her. They've got the matching tattoos. They've got pictures of her in the background in some of his concerts with her Hello Kitty, what she's wearing. I mean, the tattoos, they each have the matching, you know, on their fingers. I mean, and he has a song about Celeste, that he's obsessed with Celeste. I mean, I don't know why they haven't arrested him. I don't know what's going on in LA. I mean, maybe there's too much crime or something down there. If this is Seattle, I think he might be arrested by now.
Eklund Mercy.
And his last concert was here. His last one.
That's right. Yeah.
In Seattle.
Eklund, is there any innocent explanation for a dead child in your trunk?
First of all, the fact that how is not everybody arrested just for the simple fact of like interference with custody? If he was not a guardian, the fact that the sun set and sun rose with her being in a grown man's house is a problem for me. And I feel like money talks. And I think like just like other stars like Danny Masterson, Harvey Weinstein, R. Kelly, I feel like money talks, and they were able to grease a lot of people. I think that's why it seems discombobulated, because people are trying to get their story straight. Because you cannot have a song named Celeste and like the whole internet knows that this child is 13 and he not receive charges. Like I'm baffled that never happened. So somebody has to explain why he wasn't charged with interference with guardianship. It seems like what it looks like for me, and I do criminal. It looks like the parents may have solicited, because I went into the rabbit hole. So one of the things is that, he's been giving bribes. He pays people. So I'm thinking that, there could be solicitation things. I think it goes deeper than anybody can ever have predicted. And it sucks for him.
We are out of time. Great job as always, Nima Rahmani and Bremner. Eklund Mercy, thank you so much. When we come back, I'll reveal something else you need to know tonight.
Join Court TV's Vinnie Politan with the latest and breaking true crime stories.
Now, let's look at the other side of all of that.
Vinnie Politan Investigates, tonight, 9/8 Central, only on Court TV. Interview with a Killer. New season premieres Saturday, October 25th, only on Court TV.
Time to reveal something else you need to know tonight. Let's take a look at the big board. What do we have? A pageant queen trial date. Trinity Pogue gets a trial date. She's accused of malice murder, felony murder for inflicting blunt force trauma on an 18-month-old child that she was watching. Blunt force trauma. Let's take a listen to the judge.
Trinity Madison Pogue, Mr. Gamble was present. We had court. I'm here, Your Honor. Yes. And she's present in the courtroom, Your Honor. We are ready, subject to certain motions that are filed. Mostly have been resolved, but there may be a few issues. But we agreed, the district attorney and I had agreed to especially set this case. It's not ready for this calendar. We had talked about possibly November, but I think it might even go a little bit further down.
Well, we had said November, but then as it turns out, the November trial week actually is a December trial week.
We will try the case the week of December, that first week in December, that it's actually a November trial. That works, John.
Coming to Court TV, first week of December, the pageant queen murder trial. Right now, folks, I need you to take a look at your screens. We have a missing child who needs your help tonight. Please take a look at Jordan Herrera. Jordan's been missing since the 29th out of Roswell, New Mexico. He's just 13 years old. If you see Jordan, pick up the phone, make a call, make a difference. 911, 1-800-THE-LOST, or you can call the Roswell, New Mexico Police Department. Numbers on the screen. Don't go anywhere. We have another hour of live true crime. Vinnie Politan Investigates is next. In the meantime, please don't forget to hug the kids.